Who here cares about climate change? I don't care about climate change, and I'm going to make you not care as well. Big challenge. First though, I want to tell you a story, and I'll bring you into my world. Mid-June 2005, I'm 13. I'm in North Yorkshire, in the middle of a small market town near where I live. It's late on a Sunday evening, at the end of a scorching summer's day out with my parents. Suddenly, dark clouds start gathering, and the sky turns an ill shade of green. Thunder rumbles around the square, and the heavy rain starts to fall. This was going to be one of the worst floods on record to hit northern England, and little did I know at the time that I was at the centre of it. After driving a few miles out of town on the way home, with torrential rain hammering the car the full way, we realised we could go no further. We were stuck. Water gushed down the hills at the side of the road and brought tons of mud with it. The country road in front of us was blocked, and this is when my initial childhood excitement turned to fear. Several more roads were blocked, and I realised the scale of the unfolding event. We kept trying different ways to get home, which became more difficult as darkness drew in. Eventually, along with some other families, we managed to find a safe way home which was unaffected by the floods. On the live news coverage late that evening, I saw the damage to the community, and then a scientist told me that extreme weather events like these will become more frequent and more severe because of climate change. This is what promoted me to make climate change a part of my life, and I started action. I was fascinated by climate change, and I made it my mission to raise awareness and education around it. Now, 2005 was different from now. 2005 was a time before climate change was big news. I promoted scientific education around it. How it happens, why it happens, the greenhouse effect, atmospheric chemistry, glaciers, sea level, and so on. I was certain that education was the solution to the problem. I believe that if people understood the issue, they would understand the importance of it, and then they would take action. I met with then Prime Minister Tony Blair and Chief Scientist at Downing Street and discussed the implementation of climate change on the UK schools' national curriculum. This quickly became a reality, and I worked with organisations around the country to put this into practice. I was teaching teachers how to teach climate change. I petitioned other countries around the world to adopt it on their curriculums, and I spread my message in the media as well. At the same time, I educated myself about frontline scientific research. I led an expedition to Iceland to study Europe's largest ice cap, and I told the public the classic story of melting glaciers and encouraged academics to do the same. Okay, so let's stop for a minute and think about my title. Why I don't care about climate change. Very recently, I had a realisation that I'd been wrong this entire time. What words do you think of when you hear climate change? I'd be very surprised if the words you are thinking of right now are not on the screen behind me. These are the most common buzzwords when it comes to climate change. They represent the most frequently discussed topics in the media and in education. These are the overused terms, and they are all we hear about. So why should we care about them? We shouldn't. These words are clouding our minds. I was wrong about education on climate change. We should care far less about the science. Why? Because these words represent a failure to communicate the importance of climate change. By making climate change a scientific and academic concept, we have made it an abstract, remote phenomenon far removed from everyday life. We now look upon this world through glass, as if we are observing these changes in another world. We only talk about the impact of climate change when it is seen to cause catastrophes, and for no more than a week surrounding the event, such as the deluge of Somerset early this year, or the Hurricane Sandy in New York in 2012. During these events, we all start chatting about climate change and hashtagging floods, and then as the waters recede, we just go back to tweeting about George Clooney's wedding or whatever. We have oversold climate science so much that people switch off. A decade ago when I started this, a typical reaction to an iceberg the size of Manhattan dropping off Antarctica would be, wow, holy crap! And now it's more like, meh. The result of this is we superficially care about climate change, but not enough to warrant serious action. We see tackling climate change as a positive, altruistic thing to do, but we are not prepared to dramatically alter our lifestyles or way of business. If you look at the root cause of inaction, it is because we have often confused people with an incomplete view of the science, and people think it has no relevance to everyday life. Okay, so we shouldn't be chatting about the science of climate change. What should we be doing? We should be educating about what is already happening now. How are you being affected by climate change? And this is about you, people like you, everyday decisions, such as buying gas, driving your kids to school, where to go on holiday, how many hours of heating can you afford to have on. Stop shouting about the science of climate change and start educating about how this will affect you. The real side of climate change is personal. It will affect you and people like you across the entire world. Okay, so let's get personal. How will your security, your finances, and your food be affected? Security and conflict in the Middle East. I bet you didn't think we would go there when you signed up for a talk about climate change. Everything is connected. There are strange, strange links around this world, and our lives are intimately and inextricably connected. We are part of the world around us, and no matter how powerful all of our technology makes us feel, our lives are still dominated by nature. Climate change can act as an amplifier. What does this mean? It means it can exacerbate already existing situations by putting extra stress and extra pressure onto them. And yes, it has a part to play in the current conflicts in the Middle East. In the context of rising temperatures, and during one of the longest and most severe droughts in 50 years, Turkey has restricted the downstream flow of water along the Tigris and Euphrates into Syria and Iraq. Migration from drought-stricken rural communities has tended to be young, jobless and male. These travelled to urban hubs and sparked revolutions which quickly became civil wars, which quickly destabilised the region, and ISIL gained control. Water has become essential in this conflict and is used as an instrument of war by all sides. Control of water in the region is now seen as more strategically important than oil. Climate change acts as an amplifier and affects us in different ways. Back here in the UK, as a response to this, we have sent our military back into the area, and the domestic terror threat is now a second highest level. In the developed world, we are often seen as immune from climate change. The term climate justice often gets thrown around. We are causing the problem, but not being affected by it. Wrong. We need to reassess what climate change actually is and look deeper. A 2014 PwC report said that the indirect impact of climate change will significantly outweigh the direct. When that comes to food, we need to realise that our food isn't grown by a supermarket. Climate change threatens the international supply chain of food, from production to distribution. It threatens access to food by undermining livelihoods and destabilising prices. Climate change and slow onset changes which it brings, such as temperature change, changes in precipitation, put a downwards pressure on yields. Global yields of wheat are estimated to be 5.5% lower over the last 30 years because of climate change. If we look ahead to 2030, the price of food is set to double, with climate change playing a major part in that. In the UK, the price of staple foods over the last 5 years has risen by 30.5%. This is big, and it exacerbates other social problems such as unemployment and use of food banks. On top of these slow onset changes of climate change also increases the short, sharp shocks. In 2012, this was the wettest summer in the UK, and because of this, wheat yields fell to the lowest in 20 years. Because of this, we had to import 2.5 million tonnes of wheat. So once again, climate change acts as an amplifier and definitely affects our everyday lives. My final point comes on to another part of everyday finance, which is insurance. The observed sea level increase at Battery Park in New York is estimated to have increased losses from Hurricane Sandy by 30%. Insurance is rising in response to extreme weather events and especially flooding. If you live in a high-risk area, you may struggle to find insurance or face very high costs, with some houses on floodplains verging on the uninsurable. Okay, so you might think, I don't live near a river, I live on a hill, won't affect me. That's wrong, because the UK government and the insurance industry has just launched Flood Re, an affordable insurance scheme where properties in high-risk areas can get cover. How does this work? Well, every household, regardless of their level of flood risk, pays part of their premium into a pot, and this is used to subsidise people in high-risk areas. So although you might not be affected by the adverse impacts of extreme weather events, you won't be immune from the cost. You are all remarkable disruptors, and you might think your biggest challenge is going to be finding funding, finding supporters, getting more retweets, but climate change is the biggest disruptor of them all. The pressure it exerts on our everyday lives threatens to derail everything you do and want to do. We must come together to tackle this remarkable disruptor, to continue doing the things we want to do. I no longer care about climate change. I care about the social, the financial, and the security impact it will have on me. Stop educating about the science of climate change and start educating about how this will affect you. How will it affect you? Thank you.